Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us for today's Phase 2 virtual event, Long Distance Design. My name is Chris Jorgensen. I'm Phase 2's Director, Digital and Event Marketing. Before we get started, a bit of background on how this event came to life. Our team originally intended to host this as an in-person event in our Portland office as part of Design Week Portland. Then COVID-19 happened, and well, I'm pretty sure you all know the rest. We'd like to take a quick moment to thank the team at Design Portland for their incredible support over the past few weeks. When we asked if they would help spread the word about our virtual event, they jumped at the opportunity and have just been an amazing partner in every way possible. While COVID-19 forced us to pivot from our original vision, we feel that the subject matter is now more relevant than ever before. Our focus today is examining how design collaboration in remote environments is not the ingenious idea's natural habitat. So how can creativity survive in this challenging environment? Over the course of the next hour, we hope to share with you some of what our team has learned over the years and better equip you for this brave new world we all find ourselves navigating. This is Phase 2's third year as part of the Design Portland community, and in case you don't know what we're all about, we are a proven partner in advancing the digital landscape with 20 years of experience, trailblazing work, and a culture of constant invention. Our team is passionate about research and insights, strategy and design, and engineering expertise for building digital platforms. We believe the future is ours to co-create. We've got an incredible team of panelists today. They'll be introducing themselves as we cover our content. We absolutely want you to send us your questions, so please send them via Zoom's Q&A tool as we go, and we'll dive in at the end. Caitlin, why don't you kick us off?
Awesome. Thanks so much, Chris. Hey, everybody. I'm Caitlin. I am the Director of Brand Creative here at Phase 2, and this is our third year hosting an event for Design Portland, and I'm just so grateful to be part of this community and the awesome brain trust that's here. So thank you all for being so wonderful. I want to jump in. The reason that we're doing this event is for creatives especially, is there are a lot of challenges that are a part of working in creative work specifically. Now, these aren't challenges that are specific only to creative work, but just some sort of tendencies of the ways that we try to work. So just want to call them out specifically. Also want to talk about sort of the breadth of creative that's represented here. We at Phase 2 are part remote and part office culture pre-COVID, right? So we have some people who are remote all the time and some people who are in the office sometimes. We also are representing right now the in-house creative part of the company as well as the client side. So you got a lot of different perspectives here that we're working with, and feel free to ask us questions from any of those different perspectives. So jumping in, why is creative work different in a remote environment? A couple of things to specifically call out. The first that comes to mind, of course, is intensive collaboration. So creative teams work really, really closely together. And we get into a rhythm in person that's really awkward to recreate in a digital space, especially when you have to do it immediately and you don't have a lot of practice doing it. Creative flow is so, so important. And there are a lot of stumbling blocks in a digital environment to that. Specifically tools, right? We're all navigating a whole new set of tools, all sorts of new things. And it's really hard to maintain that flow when you're jumping between them. Internet connection. I don't know if you all have experienced this, but it's so frustrating when somebody's speaking and all of a sudden their connection dies and you get the robot noise and whatever. And it just like totally kills your flow. And also not being able to read each other and be in the room with each other. And that's just makes it really hard to do creative work. Creative work's also deeply vulnerable, and being in person really creates that sense of trust, and digital space creates distance unless we do something about it. The next thing that comes up is a really divergent process, right? So we think divergent process, we think really big, right? And we want to be all over the place, and screens are small. In addition to that, right now, the space that we're trying to take up in our lives is small. We're trying to contain ourselves. We're trying to stay isolated physically from other people. And it can feel really contained and hard to find inspiration. The next thing is curating the experience. When we share our work, we're very carefully curating the experience for our audience, right? We're trying to control as many variables as we possibly can. That's much harder in a remote space. We can't create the experience in the context that we need as easily. So that can really mess up feedback and critique, and it can really mess up enrollment. And that is so critical to what we do. The next thing is tool troubles, right? We all have inboxes full of tools. Get in Mural and in Trello and in Vision boards and Zoom and all these things. That's great. but it's not just like walking into a room and grabbing a whiteboard marker like everybody knows how to use it. There's a huge learning curve with all of these tools, and it creates this start-stop dynamic that's really awful again for that creative flow. This is something that you really can get past. We're not going to talk a ton about that in this webinar, in this event, but this is something you really can get past. But you have to commit to getting to a comfort level where they feel like second nature. These tools feel just as easy to use as walking into a room with a whiteboard. Just like we learned all of our design programs or whatever programs you're working in, it's a commitment to a new set of tools that you have to make. And then the last thing is really looking to design thinking. So a lot of us follow some version of a design thinking process, and there are some stumbling blocks in their current situation and the ways that we're used to working. So first, being fast and iterative. We're constrained by our tools, right? It's difficult to work as fast and iteratively as we want to. Visual as well, kind of flowing from the hand to the page, also much more difficult. And deeply human, right? We work in a deeply human way, and it's very hard to access that right now. We're not working together in physical proximity. We have general isolation from each other, and it's hard to access that human empathy that we have when we have to maintain distance from one another. So a big pile of problems is no fun without solutions, and that's really what we're here to talk about today. So some of the solutions we're going to share in this event. We're going to share also a remote playbook that's not specifically about creative, but answers a lot of these questions. But really start to build a vocabulary and recognize these things. Start to identify which problem you're encountering that's messing with your creative flow, and it will help you be more focused in the way that you respond to them and the way that you adapt to this new environment. Another really important thing is to not try to recreate the physical experience or accept that everything's just going to be worse in a digital space. Focus on creating a new experience for you and your team or your clients or who you're presenting work to. Focus on creating something new and know that you're really, really, really not alone. So we sent out a survey in advance of this to get some feedback on the things that you're all struggling with right now. And we got some really great responses. We used those responses to shape the content of this event. So we're really speaking to your needs right now. So thank you for sending us those responses. And just want to call out a few things. These are the challenges that we are as a group struggling with. These are the things that you all called out. If you look at the first two, the overwhelming majority, these are human problems, right? Social isolation and anxiety about the impact of coronavirus in my life. This isn't about work. This isn't about being a creative at work. These are human things. Of course, there are work problems as well, but this is the environment that we're all coming into. And I really invite you to take that as an opportunity for connection. We're all struggling with the same thing. We're all feeling very similar feelings, and use that as a way to connect with your coworkers, with your clients before even getting into the work things. We really are all in it together. And you all submitted a ton of great questions, and we want to focus on these. There were a lot of themes in them. They kind of fell into these three buckets, right? How to stay engaged and connected as a team, making remote collaborations more engaging and fun and memorable, and then the more nitty-gritty of the tools, project planning, and management. So we focused our responses on these things, and lots of opportunities to ask us more questions if your thing does not get covered here. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Jen. Thank you.
So for this segment, I'd really love to have some participation. And I know anybody in this group that's been part of a creative team knows that it's challenging as it is to come up with ideas, and especially in the environment that we're in today, it can be even more so. Finding things that inspire you, finding ways to generate ideas, focusing, it could all be a challenge. And so sometimes we have to find tools and tricks to get those ideas going and turning. So hopefully this part of the session will be a little bit of a brainstorm, and we're going to use a tool that you may not think of off the bat as a good collaboration tool, but really it's just to show that you can use things that are simple to use and easy to engage teams, even in the virtual space, but still get those ideas churning. And so I think one of the things that we think about as we try to figure out what can we do, what kind of exercises can we do to get in a headspace to generate ideas, is to think about the strengths that we have when we're not in the environment that we are today with COVID. And so one of the superpowers that I think everybody has, and that I specifically look to help me with ideas, is curiosity. It's a very natural tool for me, and it really helps me not only delve deep into the problem that I'm trying to solve, but it helps me generate the questions that I need to get to the crux of the matter. So what I'd love for you guys all to do right now is take a second and think about what your superpower is. It could be anything, right? Anything that you think that you're really strong at. Maybe you're a great listener. Maybe maybe you're a great visualizer. When you hear people talking about ideas, you have visual pictures in your mind. So think about what your superpower is. Take a minute. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use a collaboration tool that you're probably not used to. It's not Mural, it's not Miro, it's not your typical tool. This one is called Fun Retro, and it was created to do retrospectives of projects for teams. And if you've ever done a sunset review, it's something similar to that, but virtual. And I love using this tool because it's very easy to use. It allows the participants on the calls to immediately put input so that we're not leaving people in the fringes and disengaged with the conversation. And it allows people to also vote on some of the things that are coming up in terms of the idea session. So what I'd like everybody to do, I'm going to just give you a little quick demonstration on how this tool works, is you'll see this column over here with the little green button called Superpowers. And what I did is I just clicked on that little plus and I can type in what my superpower is. So I'll use second superpower, which is visualization. And I'm just going to add that. So I'd like everybody to take a second, think about what your superpower it is. It could be anything. And go right into the tool. You'll see the link in the chat, and add your superpowers to the list. Awesome. Tying bows. This is great, guys. Thank you. Analyzing. Dot connecting. That's a great one. Forecasting. Empathizing. Wonderful. Sarcasm. That's a great one. These are great, guys. Thank you. I'll give you guys another couple seconds to do that. Scroll up and see what we've got here. Problem framing, small talk. Reading people, especially challenging now, as Caitlin mentioned. Wonderful. These are great, guys. Okay, so there's some really great ones in here. Can we have a couple of people raise their hands and talk to some of your superpower ideas? Who would like to volunteer to talk to theirs? Chris, do you see any coming in here?
I'm looking, and if it's easier, feel free to send us a message through the chat as well, and we can grab you that way too.
Yep.
Looks like Patrick Sharbo. I'm calling on you, my friend. So, Patrick, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, Patrick.
Hey, how are you?
Great.
I'm here in Portland too. I wrote down problem framing as my superpower, and I really just love problem framing because we all have a tendency to jump straight away to solutions, and we're sort of wired that way. And problem framing is just a chance that you give yourself to, before you start jumping off to solutions, make sure that you're solving the right problem. Is to really investigate and do some discovery and question the question that you have, and make sure that that you frame that problem well, and not only well, but from a human perspective, because we're all solving human problems, as you noted at the beginning of this, and that's going to save you an enormous amount of probably time, money, and resources at the beginning if you spend that time problem framing.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm going to move you over to this next column over here. how they produce ideas. Thank you so much. Who'd like to go next?
We've got a shy group today.
How about, let's see if I can call in somebody. I have to ask, sarcasm. Who did sarcasm? Andrea, can you please tell us a little bit about how you use sarcasm as your superpower?
Sure. I find that it's a helpful way. It's similar. I saw somebody had small talk in there to kind of lighten the mood and get everybody in on like a real human connection and get us all in the same frame of mind. I also find that it helps to vet ideas and things like that when we go at it from a humorous angle.
Definitely. That's excellent. Thank you so much. It's a great fresh perspective. Move you over here. Let's see, who else can we do? Making lemonade is kind of interesting. Who did making lemonade? Anybody want to talk about that one? Laughing, I think, definitely goes along with sarcasm. I think lightening the mood and bringing humor to the conversation always gets people warmed up. Forecasting, dot connecting. Who did dot connecting?
That was me.
Great. Can you talk to it a little bit, Caitlin?
Sure. I think that when you are just aware of all the things going on around you in your work, in your world, and able to kind of see the connections between them and the connective tissue between them, you start to recognize patterns that sort of transcend the problem at hand and kind of can give you a greater context for what it is you're trying to do. So I often fall to that superpower as a way to kind of reframe what we're doing.
Awesome. Thanks, Caitlin.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see if we can get in a couple more. There are a couple in here that I think are really strong. Who did empathizing? Anybody? How about I love words?
Nope,
Matthew, can you talk a little bit about that one?
Sure. So, oh. Well, that didn't work.
You okay? That's right. Always happens, right? No worries. Maybe while you're working that one out, Matthew, we could try, who else wants to go? There's got to be someone out there that wants to go. Anybody want to raise your hand?
Oh.
Cara, which one was yours?
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yeah, great.
Mine was, if you scroll up, it was the listening to synthesize group sentiments and gain consensus. This might seem kind of self-explanatory, but I realized that as a facilitator that people will often continue to repeat themselves over and over again until they feel like they've been heard. And so such a big part of moving a group forward in the creative process is just ensuring that people have been heard. So I feel like as a facilitator to acknowledge the contribution of each of the people as they're sharing, and then from there being able to create a bridge to find commonalities and to find consensus in what's been decided is, I've been in so many bad meetings where people never make a decision. And so I feel like that is one of my superpowers that just can help move that creative process forward and help people feel like they're adding to something and feeling like a productive part of a decision-making process.
That's such a strong one. I agree. And I sometimes feel that there are times when I kind of when I'm facilitating one of those brainstorm sessions that sometimes I can be so much in the task that I have to do and the time that I'm watching that you can kind of forget that, but it's so important to make sure that people are heard. And then you're right, if you can't bring those ideas together at the end, you can't somehow come to a consensus, then really it doesn't really tie up those loose ends. So excellent, excellent superpower. Thank you so much. I thought I saw one more. Conan, you want to do the last one?
Can you hear me?
Yep, there you are.
Hi, I'm coming in from DC. I put forecasting, but I guess one way to frame that in my head is actually backcasting. So using what I have, I guess in terms of data, for instance, and projecting possible alternatives to different solutions that is rooted in the data, rooted in the interviews, rooted in the user feedback I have. And so forecasting in a way is, yes, to sort of project what or sort of predict what the future kind of holds or what could hold, but a lot of it does take an element of backcasting. That's
great. These are so smart. Some of them I wouldn't really have thought of as superpower, but they really are great tools. Do we have time for one more? Let's do one more. Anybody? Tying bows. Come on, tying bows.
That was me.
I knew it was you.
Well, okay, I thought about this. And I was like, tying bows is totally my superpower. I can tie incredible bows. And then I was like, I tie bows on top of people's work. Like my job as a designer is sort of to make the presentation as polished as it can be so that, as Caitlin says, there's the moment for the message to come through. And so that it like totally expands into the digital world. And it blew my mind. So that's my superpower, tying metaphorical bows and real bows.
Excellent. So everybody, that was Sedona, and you're going to meet her in a minute. And she's part of our amazing creative team. Matt, I'm sorry we didn't get to catch what you meant by love words, but if this is what we're going to do to wrap this little exercise up. Everybody who we didn't cover or didn't talk to, can you go in and actually put a couple of little bullets about how these superpowers help you produce ideas, and then we're going to move them all over to the right-hand side of the page. Once you do that, just move it on over. We'll take two seconds to do that. These are so great. Problem solving, out of the box thinking, that's excellent. Speedy is really important. We're going to talk about that in a minute in my brainstorm checklist. I think time is a real critical factor in coming up with great ideas. Organized, definitely one I could work on. All right, we're going to take another, let's say, 20 seconds. Excellent, guys. Let's get all these guys over to the right so we know everyone's done. Connections, peeling the onion for sure.
Just love watching fun retro populate. It's so fun.
I know, I love it. It's so awesome. All right, we're almost there. Thanks, guys. So while these last few people are finishing up, I have a question you guys can enter in the chat. Do you find this tool easy? It's a little bit unexpected, right, for a collaboration tool, but I just love that, I don't know how many people do we have on this call, Chris?
We've got about 61 people.
61 people. So it's a really great tool. It's very easy to use. It's very intuitive. People don't need to really be taught how to use it. Yeah, it's really fast, and it's great to get everybody's participation. All right, home stretch here. Okay, so while these last few little notes are going in here, what we're going to do next is we're going to vote. And that's another great feature of Fun Retro. It allows you to go in and vote. So everybody on the call has been given 5 votes. What I love to do is for you all to go in, and the way you're going to vote is you see your little thumbs up here. You can go in here and you can click it, and it'll allow you to go up to 5 votes. It's not letting me do it now, so just want to make sure it's in there. Let me just get that in there. Kyle, you have a question?
Go ahead, Kyle.
Nope. Here, I think we've got a glitch. And so here we are. We're in the middle of a presentation and we've got a glitch. I can't close Matt's I love words, and I can't get myself to vote, but I'm going to let you guys vote. I think you guys will be able to do it. What you're going to do is you're going to click the little thumbs up for the superpower that you think is going to be most valuable for you. It's a personal choice, but everybody has up to 5 votes. So you can go through and pick any number of the selections. And that should just take a second. Yay, okay, I think we're good. Glitch done. Excellent. And while you guys do that, I'm going to give you the big reveal in a second. Take another second and go through and vote on your favorite superpowers. I'm gonna move over connections. Okay. All right, so let's see how we voted. Dot connecting. Number 1. Problem framing. Okay, yeah. Breaking large projects into smaller components. Absolutely. So helpful. Making lemonade. Listening for sure. It's the foundation of great work. These are great. Awesome, guys. Let's read a few more. Speedy, for sure. Curiosity, sarcasm, they all made the top. That's great. Wow, guys, thank you so much. This was so helpful. I hope you all found that this was useful. We can give you guys in our takeaway documents some of these tools too. So we'll give it in our takeaway items from this call, but thank you so much for participating in these. I really appreciate it. So I'm going to now go back to the presentation so I can hand it off to my colleagues, but just want to wrap up a few key housekeeping things when it comes to doing housekeeping. And really it's just defining a couple things as your groundwork and ground rules that'll really help make for productive ideation and getting the most out of your sessions. One, we've talked about it already, make sure you know your audience. If you can have sort of like that moment of, or even do like an empathy mapping exercise beforehand so you can understand what your audience, your users, your stakeholders feel, think, see, or do, it'll take you a long way into focusing and getting clarity on what you need to do. And then of course, make sure that everybody's aligned. You have a very specific goal that you're aiming for during these sessions, so that you can be very focused and everybody can be on the same page. This one I found really important. Invite the right people, right? I know we've all had those situations where there's been too many chefs in the kitchen. Let's just be really cognizant to make sure you get the right mix of people in the room with the right energy levels, and you know that they have the right type of contribution to the conversation. Will take you a long way. Using the right tools. You know, I know that we talk a lot about tools, and there's ones that we've mentioned, Caitlin's mentioned, like Mural and Miro, and the one we just used, Fun Retro. But really think about what you want to do. Do you need to whiteboard? Do you need to map? Do you need to get contributions from the group? Think about the tool that's working right, that will work best for you, and of course, be very familiar to how it works. Limiting your time. I think that, I don't know about you, but I found that a lot of creative personalities do really well when you give them nice, tight, short time frames. The more time they have, the harder it is for them to focus. Don't know why that is, but it seems to be a common trait. So limit your time for the brainstorm session so that there's a sense of urgency that's felt, and it tends to bring out the best results in people. And then, of course, and we got to hear some of this in some of your superpowers, prioritize your ideas, and then make sure you know what next steps are. Make sure we get consensus, and then move forward where everybody knows what's going on, what they need to do, and what the next steps will be. I want to thank all of you for taking the time to participate in my little brainstorm session. It was really insightful. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to my colleague, Joey.
Hi, everyone. Hope you can hear me well. I'm Joey Groh, Director of Creative Design over here at Phase 2, and we focus more on the visual and the UI design side of the house. So today, I'm super excited to talk to you about presenting design work remotely. Now, it's always pretty much better to do this in person, but we can't always do that, especially right now. I work from home outside of Seattle, so I actually have to do it quite a bit. But I thought it'd be fun to put together some not so great things that I have personally seen or have maybe happened to me on video calls. So, okay, here's the story. Let's say a designer, maybe not me or not you or nobody we know, but they're working on a big project. Maybe they're with a team, maybe it's just them. It's time to present the work to the client. So this is what it would look like if everything went wrong at the same time, and what I would definitely consider a nightmare scenario. So here we go. All right, welcome to the design review. Let me just find that file. Okay, yeah, here we go. Here's the file. So what do you think? Please never ask that. And as a client struggles to focus on the design through all this crazy noise and stuff, something else is happening. They're seeing things a little bit differently on their side. So now after going back and forth to them a few more times, like, you know, they're just like, not sure what's going on with this purple because it's supposed to be blue. Something terrible happens. They got a notification popping up. Somebody forgot to turn off their notifications. Oh, this is really terrible. So before the designer even gets a chance to see what's going on, we have something else happening. Some chaos ensues in the background as the designer goes to deal with the situation at hand. And now the client is left staring at this cringe-worthy spectacle before them. So now they're coming back and they're seeing what's happening on the screen, and panic is setting in. This is by far the worst thing that's happened and the worst case scenario. There's no way it can get worse than this, right? Suddenly, the designer's internet connection starts dropping in and out. The screen's fuzzy, it's hard to see. The client sounds very annoyed and very frustrated. Not good. Well, at least it's not gonna get any worse than this, right? Murphy's Law says otherwise. Maybe it's actually a good thing that the internet put this terrible review out of its misery, but that's all like a little bit over the top, but I think you totally get the point. So where do we go from here? Have a backup plan. Test out your audio and your video beforehand. Just get really familiar with the software. Better yet, have somebody, someone in your family or a colleague get on the call to test it with you to make sure that your volume's at the right level. It's not like breaking up or too hot, and that your video is coming through really well. Have a plan if your audio or your video cuts out. you should have the phone number and the code on hand to the meeting, just in case you have to use a phone for your audio. You can write it down on a piece of paper, maybe have it even ready to go on your phone, because that has definitely happened to me before, where you have to call in at the last minute. Nobody wants to be hunting around for that stuff. For video, it seems like there's always someone who cannot see the screen every single time. I don't know, it's just how it works. Or the quality just comes across as poor for everybody. So things like thin lines for designers, things like the thin line and the light background hues, sometimes that stuff just completely disappears on shared video. And the colors could be off. Maybe not as bad as from blue to purple, but you know, I've seen that stuff too. So those things could quickly derail your presentation. To anticipate, you know, that you might have some video issues, you're gonna have them sometimes, there are a couple things that you can do. So number one, if you can, have another team member on the call who could be taking notes to share the design if you can't. Two, and this is probably something that you wanna do regardless of the fact of anything, is send over a link to the designs via email or a file to them before the call. I think this could be a little controversial because I think that goes against the big reveal, but they're gonna see it, you're gonna do the voiceover in just a couple minutes, and I think it's a good backup plan. So when you send it over, if somebody does have to follow along, just be cognizant of them and be empathetic for the people dealing with some of these technological difficulties. Step through the screens by number so they can follow along so they know where you are. It's really gonna be the best fidelity, plus they're gonna ask for the designs to review anyways. So go ahead and prep that email beforehand and include details on the expectations for them. This also works really well if you're presenting along without a team and you have no issues. So next up, limit distractions. First off, turn off your notifications. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen somebody presenting something where things start popping up and people even talk about like the client on the call. It's terrible, like don't let that happen, super cringeworthy moment. I also don't know how many times I've seen somebody fire up a screen share and kind of not ready to go, and they're clicking around through, maybe not as messy of a desktop as the one that I share, but they're fumbling through folders or even looking through an email to present. And if you work in healthcare like us, that's actually really dangerous because you might expose somebody's personal information, which could bring up some lawsuits. So gotta be really careful there. For your screen share, presentation mode is the best option where you basically take up the entire screen. However, that's not always possible. Sometimes you want to show off designs in InVision inside your browser to kind of show that experience. So if you are showing your desktop, make sure that you have all of your icons stashed away in a folder. I have a folder called like desktop stuff or whatever, you know, or client folder stuff, so that way they know you're working hard on it. Set your background to something neutral. I know we like to have those images with pictures and things like that, but they are a little bit distracting. So if you have your browser window open, try to hide bookmarks and things like that. We also like to use an intro placeholder on some of our design work that includes the organization's name you're working with, maybe design review in big letters, the names of the screens included, and the date. That's also nice for you personally if you have your designs in something like not InDesign, but in InVision. And so that way you go in there and you can actually see what's going on and not just having to look at the comps. But it gives you a great place to set expectations, and ultimately it just comes off as being really professional and put together. So have somebody taking notes also. It might be difficult if you're flying solo. So you could use something like otter.ai, that's O-T-T-E-R, and I'll have a link to that in the resources a bit later. That'll automatically transcribe for you, and I believe that Zoom also has one as well. So better than nothing, right? Unless you have a photographic memory, in which case you're good. Like Caitlin was saying earlier, curating the experience is mission critical. The experience that somebody has is almost just as important as the way of the work that you're showing. So keep things as distraction-free as possible and limit visual noise to focus on the work. Get off that chair. So if you were in a room presenting, you'd want to be standing up. I mean, hopefully I don't have to say this, hopefully you know that. But the same thing when you present remotely, especially if it's for a client. If it's something internally and you're jamming with your team, like I think you can be more relaxed about things, but your voice is gonna carry better. You're gonna sound more confident. And plus, if you're a little bit jittery, being able to move around a little bit, not too much to cause distraction, but that's gonna help with those nerves. I've even had times where I had to put my laptop on top of a box so I could do that. Look as closely into the camera as you can when you are presenting. Notes are totally fine, but don't let those be a distraction. So put them under the camera so you're not looking away at a different screen. Better yet, don't have any notes and just make sure that you're talking about something that you know. Encourage the others on the call to share their video also so you can see their faces and their reactions. Because if you can't be in a room with them, you want the closest thing possible. Lindsey, Sedona are actually going to chat about that in a little bit right after this. So yeah, also set expectations. Get that intro screen pulled up and let people know what the expectations are for the presentation. If you're in the middle of a project, you could use this time to recap project goals, go over previous feedback, and really set those clear objectives for the review. Things like, what kind of feedback do you expect from them? Can they chime in randomly during your presentation? Which, believe me, they certainly will. And even if you tell them not to, they still will anyways. But I found that it's best to present the work and then open it up for questions and conversations afterwards. Send them the notes so they can work internally on a consolidated feedback doc, so that way they can take that and they can look at it and have consensus on the inside of things. I'd like to do that really within 1 day to 2 days, so it's still fresh in their minds. And this is also a really good way to identify if they have some issues internally that maybe need to be worked out outside of this. Last one, rinse and repeat. If you are running multiple cycles of design reviews, consistency is key for a great experience. They will appreciate the structure. And remember, be confident and always thank people for their feedback. It is a gift. So next, I'd like to pass it to Lindsey and Sedona to chat just a bit about making the switch to remote work.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lindsey. I'm a senior designer here at Phase 2, and I work with
Sedona. I am Sedona, and I am also a senior designer at Phase 2.
So Sedona and I both started at Phase 2 as interns back in 2015. That's the first picture there on the left where we're doing our first little project together. And that takes us to now where we're friends outside of work and we do crazy things like run around in the pouring rain together in New Orleans. We've been working together for 5 years now and a team of 3 that includes us. So we work really closely together every day. Unlike most of the company at Phase 2 here, Sedona and I both are strict office dwellers. We usually both would come into the office every day and start our day with a meeting together that would be just us and Caitlin. So now all of that has changed and we've had to shift our working relationship to figure out how to help it function remotely.
And so we put together some insights for you about what we've learned. I think the first one is check in often and proactively. So this is something you need to be intentional about and not rely on just the spontaneous interaction of walking over to another person's desk or like quickly asking their opinion about what this looks like. So it's really important to just check in and remember to like proactively offer your time. It is hard to remember that there are other people behind the screens.
The second thing is knowing body language. Body language still exists in remote work land. You just have to be more aware of it. After 5 years of working together in person every day, I know Sedona's body language pretty well. For example, I can still tell over remote calls and video calls when she wants to say something in a crazy meeting where everybody's talking and it's really loud and nuts. So I'll do a little thing that I usually do in person in the office and I just kind of raise my hand or like start yelling. And then when everybody goes, okay, yeah, Lindsey, what'd you have to say? I just go, Sedona has something to say. And that's a little body language, physical working environment thing that we've been able to translate over to the remote working environment really well, just by paying attention to it and not letting it just get lost in the change. I've also learned that I have a particular body language thing that happens only with remote work that everybody is calling your connection is bad face. Apparently I make a very particular face when people on a video call are going either in and out of audio or in and out of video, and it has become quite the trusted triage tool for all the people I'm in meetings with to check their connections. The moral of the story is we're all still the same people behind the screens, and letting that come through in remote work is really important. And for that to work, you have to turn your camera on. So this is part of why it's so important to have your camera on during a video call. Part of the reason why we all have them all on here. It helps create that connection and helps you tune into people's body language even when you can't be in that physical space with them.
And then it's important to acknowledge the physical space as you were going to. We're not trying to replicate our workplace at home. We're trying in a new environment to work and it's important to be curious about where people are. And when you do that, you invite a sense of intimacy. So if you're comfortable sharing what it looks like where you work, the physical room where you work, it can really strengthen the relationship with anyone, and not just coworkers, with clients, etc. And just a little sidebar for me, it's kind of hard to just like understand someone and focus when I just see their floating head. When I understand the architecture around them, it can really help me focus in on where they are and imagine exactly where they are. So that's just a sidebar. And then acknowledging things that are in the room just as you were if you were in the room with someone. So like if there are partners or roommates walking by, saying, hey, you would do that in real life as well. And then if they're like pets, interacting with them, that's always such a delightful thing, is to know somebody's pets too. So these small things can contribute to more personal relationships and are an avenue for intimacy that you don't typically have in person.
And then the next thing is don't end meetings early. If you wrap up your meeting earlier than scheduled, take back those minutes. Use those minutes, those precious minutes that we all have now, for rekindling that human connection, reconnecting with people as people, talking about non-work things, reconnecting about your personal life, about the weather, just anything. It reminds you and them that there are humans on the other end of the screen during your meetings. It does wonders for your social and mental health. It helps a ton with that social isolation that we're all struggling with right now, and just can really help change the environment to be more connected, more in tune with the people that you're talking to. Obviously, you need to be respectful of people's time and ask them if they can stay on if you end your meeting early before you just launch into your personal story about the crazy thing your cat did the other day. Not that I've ever done that, but you know. Another note I found that works a bit better with one-on-ones in small groups, like 2 to 3 people. If you try to do it with a big group, like a whole team meeting or something, it gets a little crazy and you kind of lose the whole purpose of it, which is that personal connection.
And then nourish the personal relationship. So try to do things outside of work to maintain that side of things that you had before. So Lindsey and I have our D&D game, and we continue to play it. But we'll do like spontaneous happy hours, or I know at Phase 2, we also have a monthly horror club or horror movie club that meets monthly, I think. And they watch movies together all over the country for years now. They've been doing it for years. So if you would get a drink with somebody before this, you should keep doing that and keep nourishing that relationship. And in general, remember that people are people, and that while making the switch, it's going to be harder to connect with your coworkers and with your team. But it's really, really critical and even more important now. Chris is going to talk about our resources and wrap it up for us here.
Thanks, everybody. So as Joey mentioned, we put together some great resources for everyone today, including our remote work playbook, which is a deep dive into all of this content and more. And then you still see the links in there to Fun Retro, Mural, Freehand, Miro, and of course, Otter.ai. So we're excited to share those with you. That will come along with a link to the recording of today's presentation. If you missed any of it, if you'd like to share it, we'd love for you to do that. And at this point, we are going to open it up to questions. So feel free to either use the chat, which I know a lot of you have been throughout the virtual event today, or the Q&A. While we are waiting, I'm going to put our panel on the spot today and ask them to say, what is the biggest thing that surprised them about how they've reacted to the switch the last month and a half that we've been living through? Some of them have been, like Joey, have been working remotely for most of his career, but some others haven't. And so I'd just love to hear from each of them if there's anything that surprised them about how they've reacted.
I have really been endeared by, and it's something that Sedona and Lindsey have just brought up about, we have lots of calls, we have lots of team members that have children, and we talked about pets, and we'll have conference calls now where kids are sitting on laps and you know, husbands are walking through the background, and dogs are jumping on the bed behind them. And honestly, it just, you know, we are far away. I'm in South Florida. You guys are in Portland. We have people in New York. I'm in DC, and it just brings us closer together. And so the things that we thought are, maybe inappropriate or shouldn't be in the work environment have really made this moment more special and have, for me personally, brought me closer to my colleagues.
Thanks, Jen.
Can I do a live demo right now and show you my adorable cat sleeping on the couch next to me?
Please do. Meow, meow, meow.
Oh, cute.
So cute.
Is that Tamale?
Little tamale cat.
I can add one. I'm having so much fun figuring these things out. I think I've always relied on digital tools for creative process as like a backup plan. If you can't be in the room together. And I think it's, once I sort of switched the mindset to, okay, this is life now. Can we like solve this problem and actually make it really fun and engaging and interesting? Like, it's a really fun problem to solve, and digging into all the tools and all the advice and everything can feel overwhelming. But when you find something that works, it feels great. So that's been surprising for me.
Awesome.
I have a similar answer. I am really enjoying experimenting with my own schedule and with my own process, I guess. I've never had a chance to be more flexible around what I want to do in my house. I've always been really, what's the word? Like jumping around to coffee shops and jumping around to the office. And it's really fun to do that in my own home and see what kind of things I need during the day. So I love that opportunity.
Yeah, it's super similar to design and having those constraints set when you have a design challenge. It's like you're in this box, and some of us literally, and you have to really work out these creative solutions to it. So I think that in of itself has been a really cool exercise to see how everyone's been doing that. And for me personally, I found like I've had more time with the flexibility to like let my brain kind of go into that creative space and sort of work its magic, when I'm zoning off or whatever, and those sorts of things. So it's really interesting, the insights that have been coming out of all this paradigm shift.
Sure.
Thanks, everybody. So we have a question from Conan. He asks, to each of you, what is one free software tool, communication, design, presentation, that has helped make your creative work during the switch to working online easier?
Go ahead, Jen.
I'm always remote. I'm like one of the few team members in South Florida, so I'm always remote, and I have leaned a lot on our Slack channel, and the way we've set it up has been a little bit. We have like kind of like multiple tiers. We have our guilds, and we have our team discussions, and we have project discussions, but then we also have some of the things that Sedona touched on, which were our like personal channels, one on Crazy Housewives, one on horror movies, all those things. And I feel like the way that our culture is set up, it's really helped us, create those connections and relationships that are not just professional. And of course, it allows us to have that critical communication, which is necessary, but it really helps us connect on multiple levels, which I think is really important for our team culture and our relationships on a day-to-day.
I have one that I noticed that we've used before, but I've noticed I've been using it more since we switched to fully remotely, is doing feedback gathering in a collaborative document. So starting a Google Doc for feedback on particular work. When we work in the office, it kind of be a combo of like conversations with people, and some over email and some over this and some over that, like whatever. And I've really come to rely on those collaborative tools where everybody can put their feedback into one place, but they can all do it at the same time, and you can still have those reviews happen when they need to happen, but it's all organized in that collaborative space that everybody can still have access to.
I will say Envision Boards. It's their mood boarding tool. It's fantastic. It's kind of like being able to gather things on Pinterest, but way more of a curated and like specific for a specific project. So you can put in, you know, swatches and bits of text and things you find online and all of that. And I found it to be a really great tool for gathering things kind of asynchronously in the initial research stages of a project.
I think mine would be more of a combination of a couple things. I've been really getting back to pencil on paper. It's not technology, but you know, having something where you can, if you're not in office, you can't go to the whiteboard, but really having something where you know you can scratch stuff out. We've got smartphones and cameras and things like that, so snapping a picture, sending it, going back and forth. It's not optimal, but I think there's something really nice about that tactile experience when you work with pen and paper.
Thanks, everybody. It looks like, oh, someone helped us. Lindsey, thank you for jumping in there. We had just a quick question about a spelling of one of the tools we mentioned. Cara has two questions for us. The first one, I'm gonna let you guys, there's another tool question, but I wanna take this one first from Cara. Can someone speak to how they use freehand?
I can speak to unless somebody has experience.
Go for it, Caitlin.
Freehand is like, it's kind of crazy and chaotic, but I've found that it's really useful when you're working with non-creative types, or everybody's creative, of course, non-designer types, because it's super easy to like jump in and everybody's kind of messy with it. Like Mural, I think some people, know how to use the tool better, but freehand, it's kind of an equalizer has been my experience with it. So it's not the first tool that I go to, but it's really good if you're working with like a diverse group of people. There's kind of equality in the chaos or madness. Maybe that's just means I'm awful at using the tool, but that's been my experience.
Thanks, David.
And it's forgiving. So people that aren't like really accurate and it's kind of awkward, it does that little bit of a cleanup. So it's kind of nice that way.
The other question Cara had for us, which is similar, but I think there's a unique wrinkle here, is what tools are you using now for remote work that you weren't using before COVID specifically?
Fun Retro. We were like, what can we do to get like 15 people in a room to do these? And we've literally used Fun Retro like 4 or 5 times and never have even thought about using it prior to this COVID thing. We were working with a group of data geeks, and they were very not clinical, but analytical, and we wanted them to just have something easy to use and not feel pressured to sketch or get into our big mural boards, and it really has worked out.
I'll add our remote work playbook is a tool that I am now using a lot more. So as everybody's in a remote environment now, there are a lot of people in varying stages of their level of comfort working remotely. And so I've just found myself doing a lot of like helping people, giving tips, creating comfort in the environment, and sharing the playbook in terms of like, here things that you can do, some kind of best practices and things like that. So that's been a new thing, is people helping people kind of be comfortable in a remote environment for whom this is new.
Thanks all. It looks like we are about at time. We did want to share with you our contact information. So we know with the survey we sent out ahead of time that a lot of you took the time to fill out, and we really appreciate that, by the way. There might have been some questions in that survey we did not get to. So you'll see our contact info for each of us, Instagram and email. And by all means, we'd love to connect with you offline. And I just want to thank everyone who attended today and our panel for all their hard work. Is definitely a labor of love, and I think it showed. So on behalf of our team, thank you for joining us, and please stay safe. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.